Dynasty Sleeper QBs is a great topic. We haven't talked about deep sleepers or middle round sleepers in a while. And while some people might say, you can't quantify this as a sleeper, Smitty, we can do whatever the hell we want. I've been doing this for 20 plus years. And I always give you big name sleepers, middle round sleepers, deep sleepers, second round sleepers. I could say whatever I want. All you got to do is just quantify what we're talking about. Label it. What's your descriptive term that you're adding to the equation when you start saying deep sleeper, third round sleeper, early sleeper? Anybody can be a sleeper. It depends on what you're categorizing that sleeper as. A deep sleeper, early sleeper, whatever. Shuck and Mendoza are sleepers to a degree because I believe people are sleeping on their values. We're going to talk about what other quarterbacks people might be sleeping on, and we'll dig into some bigger name guys that if you want to be uncomfortable about it, you can't call that guy a sleeper, then think of whatever you want. Undervalued, whatever the case may be, we're talking about it. Dynasty Show Graveyard Edition begins right now. File on in.
Live from the FantasyFootballShow.com studios, it's the Dynasty Fantasy Football Show.
So, Mendoza is obviously a pretty decent, candidate to be undervalued, sleeper-esque in certain terms. Now, in Superflex, everyone's going to draft him, so it's not like you're finding him on the waiver wire. But in redraft, he'll be available. This is the Dynasty Show. In Dynasty, he'll be available in some cases, but not in Superflex. But you might find it easy to grab him at least late in your draft as your QB2 in a Dynasty. And if he becomes something special down the road, even a year later, then you have options to trade your starting quarterback or just have, some good, depth at the position. But Mendoza is certainly going to be, everything's going to be built around him. Having Bowers, having Genty, having likely an incoming receiver like Romeo Doubs at least, and Alec Pierce attempt, even though Colts could lure him back. At this moment, if you're watching this 2 months from now, that's where we're at. Certainly a receiver is going to land in LV. I think Dobbs is a perfect fit, and that doesn't overpower or make Bowers' workload diminish or anything like that, and Genty's certainly going to tear it up. But Mendoza's fantastic prospect material in Dynasty. 1 QB, especially 2 QB. He would be a really good second quarterback. Shuck, on the other hand, has very good QB one low end, but very good shot at being a QB1 on the low end variety this year in 2026. So in redraft, we're strongly considering him our second quarterback because he's not quite there yet, but he certainly could be in week 1. Like it could happen right away. He certainly scores well. In Superflex, he's in redraft or Dynasty, he's fantastic second quarterback. But I love drafting Shuck as my second quarterback in best ball. In Dynasty, especially Superflex, he's still going to be your second quarterback. No one's drafting him as your number 1, but he'll go a lot higher. And the expectation for his long-term value in Dynasty Superflex is going to ignore a lot of the concerns and red flags and risks that come along with a young quarterback that has a lot to prove. CJ Stroud, JD5, a lot of quarterbacks, Jordan Love. Look at Baker, look at Trevor Lawrence vanishing, then coming back. Look at Danny Dimes vanishing and coming back. Look at Mac Jones vanishing almost completely off the face of the earth. And now potentially, and again, as you watch this, Mac Jones is still a Niner, but could be traded to Minnesota to become something special. I like these two guys a lot. They're very, very good deep sleeper redraft and deep sleeper Dynasty QB2s. And in Superflex, they make fantastic. Try and build the other positions up as long as you can before you grab your second quarterback option. So we love them on all formats. There's just different, levels of where they're valued and what we consider and constitute a sleeper. There are other quarterbacks if we want to dig truly into the deep sleeper category. AR5 comes to mind as a guy that we might see revived at some point, or they use him in a Taysom Hill role, even if he gets traded or something happens. There's a lot of intrigue here in Superflex leagues and Dynasty where you just get him on your roster and hope something happens. No one's saying it will right away. No one's saying you should be starting him right away. But this is an intriguing player to have as if you only have 2 quarterbacks in the Superflex and you're grabbing him as your third, it's kind of a fun third to have sitting there fermenting on the bench. Or if it's fourth quarterback. Jackson Dart's got a lot of appeal to be a lot better than he was even last year. He didn't have Scadaboo. When Scadaboo went down, he didn't have Neighbors for almost the entire season, and he still did well. Still ran amazingly, still scored fantasy football points, and you just wonder how good he's going to be when he gets his full arsenal of weaponry back. The only thing that I would say is negative, and we're on the Dynasty channel, so we can avoid some of the negatives here and say that things will either get better or be as good as we think they should be, or if the situation gets screwed up for a year, it'll change the next year, and they'll move coaches, move on from whatever coaches are holding this thing back. And that coach, you know who I'm talking about, Matt Nagy, offensive coordinator, just a terrible hire. So that's concerning to me to a degree for 2026, but I still think Jackson Dart's capable of getting kind of what you need out of the cost of entry in Dynasty, in Superflex, in redraft, doesn't matter. But why did I take him off the screen? I'm sitting here talking about him. But Jackson Dart's a real fine option for Dynasty. Other QBs that have good Dynasty appeal that are really intriguing, that are just not really, hot commodities yet. Malik Willis, he's not a starter right now, probably leaning toward a Miami landing spot. By the time you watch this, you might know the landing spot. But the word out on the street and the news is that Willis will be a Dolphin. If he's not a Dolphin, he's, Pittsburgh Steelers make a lot of sense, in my opinion. Other sleepers that I think we should be having conversations about. Shador's got some sleeper appeal, whether people will, they love to hate this guy. So he's going to cost a lot less, and there's some risk for sure. But really think he could have a tremendous career. I also think that this guy will eventually emerge a year or two from now. And Jalen Milroe, I think somebody is going to potentially have their eyeballs on this kid. And maybe something happens to Darnold, knock on wood, no one wants that. But Darnold's not exactly, everyone says he's underrated, and he is to a degree for sure. Great game manager, no doubt about it, even a level above game manager. But he's like Brock Purdy. If something happens, and it did in San Francisco last year when Mac Jones stepped in and played better than Brock Purdy. I know Brock Purdy did end up coming back and playing better than Mac Jones, but there was the threat that Purdy could eventually lose his job if Mac kept balling out. And when Purdy was healthy enough to come back, he was completely fine in practice. They kept saying he needed more time. He didn't. Mac was playing great. So this is one of those situations where if Darnold were to go down, whether people are a sensitive Darnold Donnie out there, why do you talk about get Darnold's name out of your mouth? You're going to come up and Will Smith the hell out of me. It's not going to work, number one. Number two, this guy gets in there. There's a chance he doesn't give the job back if, let's say, Darnold went down for a whole season on some, ACL tear or something, knock on wood. Then Milroe steps in and gets his feet planted. Then it's one of those things. So Milroe's got a lot of appeal on different levels. Could he climb up someday? Sure. Could he get traded, someday? Sure. Shuck, I like a lot. Other quarterbacks that come to mind, we'll see where Tua lands, but Tua's one concussion away of never being solid ever again anyway. I think, Milton's somebody to watch. If he's available, you pick him up. And this is where people get their panties in a bunch when I'm talking about sleepers. And they're like, I can't believe he said that guy's a sleeper. Then don't watch the channel if you can't absorb what I'm saying. I got mapping it out. This is a early round sleeper. And the definition, by definition, and your boy can say whatever he wants about what he's talking about, because I've been doing this 25 plus years. Since the internet was only around for like 4 years, I was creating content. And I have always used the term sleeper with big name players, with small name players. All you have to do is just label it. And here's my label. He's a middle round quarterback sleeper in 1 QB. Obviously goes in round 1 in a super flex. So he's not even sleeping at all. So super flex, there's no real discount. In 1 QB leagues, he's still very, very middle round, capable of top 3 to 5, QB numbers in any given season. So he's a middle round, big name sleeper candidate that people aren't giving top 4 or 5 capability respect to. And so he's being slept on at that level. Whether you want to agree with it or not, I really don't care. Herbert is going to potentially explode this year. And the bottom line is he's undervalued. If that's the word you want to cling to, whatever, it doesn't matter. Undervalued to a max degree. This is a guy that could climb up and be the 4th highest scoring quarterback in fantasy football under Mike McDaniel. And now that Mike McDaniel's converted over to Malibu Mike. And I'm wearing this Miami Cuban in dedication to Miami Mike McDaniel transitioning over to Malibu. And I don't know where my Malibu attire is, but we'll figure it out. Travis, you wanted to call in, I think, about something you could. The phone lines are open if anybody wants to dial in real quick. We will not be here too long, probably about 5 more minutes. I'm going to make this a 15 to 20 minute show.
Call into the show. Call into the show.
About this alt logo, because there's different needs for different logos, right? Whether it's a wide banner that's either on the website, logo, whatever. Tell me what you guys think of. So this is the main logo, obviously. Okay, that's what's happening. That happened. So we got the main one right here. And then we've got this alternative logo, which is different. I can't get this thing damn size. It's different, but we need something wide. So it has all the same characteristics, but it lacks a few aspects because it's a different, shape. So let me pull that bad boy up real quickly. And you guys tell me what you think of this one. And if you feel like it, you're vibing with it. It's right here. Let me put it on the other screen. Okay. So here's the other logo. Are we vibing with both of them? So like if we need to use widescreen, we're fine with that top right one. This one I'm moving around right now. Very similar, just stretching out the letters. The helmet's gonna go away because this is too small, especially when you're like on mobile. And this thing gets shrunken down to like this, that can still be seen pretty good, but the helmet can't. So this is kind of where I've fallen on in terms of how this logo can be stretched out and still be very identifiable to the same. Are we all feeling that? Again, they go together. It's not like you're choosing one. It's just a matter of like, what I'm asking is, are you identifying them as the same in your brain? Are you going, okay, yeah, that's good. It's just stretched out. I like it. I just want to make sure that it's connecting. Because again, we're not choosing one or the other. Can you swap the helmet out for a football? No, we're not changing it. Oh, when it's stretched, Vader? No, because that would alter it. With logos and marketing, you're not really adding. I don't want to add anything. I mean, it's an interesting idea, actually, Vader, but I don't want to add anything. The subtracting is okay, but it's a cool concept, but I don't think I want to do that. Plus, again, shrinking it down really makes it difficult. I promise you, I've tried, because even if it's a helmet or a football, shrinking it down creates a problem. And so this works pretty good, like a mobile. It still looks really good, but I just want to make sure your guys' eyes are connecting the dots. Vader, I wasn't yelling at you. I was just kidding, bro. Travis, you're live.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, so I think just going off what you were saying there, I think the three best, like, and I mean, you wouldn't call Mahomes a sleeper per se, but the three best high-end guys that you can buy right now that could be like 1-5 finishers would be Mahomes, Herbert, and JD5. I think there's going to be leagues that you can get all of them at a pretty good value.
Yeah.
And so
definitely
high-end guys. Obviously, like, Stafford, if you have a team that can win it all and you need a guy, I don't know that he's going to put up numbers like last year, and there's the injury stuff, but there's teams that are a QB away and people are clinging to QBs and super flex and stuff like that. For the right price, you could even get Stafford for a year or so. Besides that, though, sorry, I'm dropping stuff. I was going to ask you about what do you think of like T-Law versus like Shuck versus Nix, like those three guys? Because they all have some similarities. They all have kind of a similar ceiling.
I'll be honest. T-Law, as much as I do love the Law Dog, it's so hard for me to evaluate him. I'd be lying to you if I said I felt any one way, strong, consistent way about him. I just don't. Nick's the same thing. Like I as much as I like Nick's, who turned 26 today, by the way. Congratulations, Nick. 26, jeez. He's still got a lot of time left, but is wild. But 26-year-old Knicks, I mean, he's an intriguing player, but it's just like I said earlier on the main channel, there's some obstacles that we can't control in some of these cases. And those obstacles feel like, there's clutter around his situation. Brissett, there's clutter around. I know he's older, and this is a dynasty show, but Brissett is a value right now. Like, people in redraft aren't even, maybe 50% of the population expects Brissett to return as the starter, and maybe the last laugh is going to be on us that believe that he's more of a lock to be the starter. But even with Kyler news today, and if you're watching this weeks from now, the news today was that Kyler wants to be released, and maybe by the time you watch this, he's already a free agent, or he gets traded, or something wild at the end. But Brissett seems like the logical, okay, well then he's for sure starting, but you don't even, if you're seeing content anywhere, you see a talking head here or a podcaster there, and they're saying the Cardinals should go get Aaron Rodgers. The Cardinals should trade for Bajent from the, why is no one talking about this man? I know he's older, but he's under contract, and in Dynasty, if you want to buy low on a quarterback and you don't have a second quarterback, you could get this guy off someone's hands and they might be afraid and sell him a lot cheaper because they're not sure. Think of it like you go into a pawn shop and you've got a coin and you're trying to sell it. You don't know if it's real. You think there's a 80-70% chance it's real. Grandpa always told you it was real, but you weren't sure. Or sword. Maybe you go in and you're trying to give some samurai sword that's got a story to it that it's supposed to be 20 grand. Okay. And you walk into the pawn shop at Pawn Stars and they say, we're going to call somebody. And then Pawn Stars says, but before we call them, I'll give you 9 grand for it now. But if it's fake, then it's worth nothing. And of course, we're not giving you anything. That's kind of the way you could look at some of these player values. Like, you could draft Brissett or trade for Brissett now and get him at an extreme discount. And it's almost the flip of that, though. You're getting him at an extreme discount, but you're taking on a risk that it's fake. So you're kind of the pawn shop in this case, in a way. And so you're what do you do? Do you take on a little bit of risk and burn the money or the draft capital, and then he ends up not starting, or he ends up starting for a little while and breaks or whatever? It's such a good value. I love grabbing Brissett in Dynasty or any kind of super flex. The other thing I would say is Baker is a really good value right now. People think Baker fell apart, and I was going to bring up. There's risk to it, but I think it's very, very feasible that he bounces back under Zach Robinson, who did amazing things in Atlanta, is a really good offensive coordinator, and Bucky's going to the moon. Baker's going to bounce back. Ibuka's going to the moon like Drake London. So, yeah, and then Herbert, you said Mahomes. While Herbert, Mahomes, and JD5 are not traditionally, as you said and as I said, thought of as any sort of sleeper. They're not deep sleepers by any means, but they're being slept on. So we can definitely suggest that people, if we instead of calling them sleepers, if I just say these guys, regardless of their value, are being slept on, then you can accept that. Yeah. If you can't accept sleeper term out there, it's your problem, but they're being slept on. Mahomes is being slept on. Herbert's being slept on. JD5's being slept on. They're just plain and simple. They're people that are just scared of their situation, scared of the injury, scared of the situation falling apart again. JD5, did he bust? These guys are a lot cheaper than they should be in Dynasty 1 QB. Unfortunately, in Superflex, we lose a little bit of that ability to steal guys away because people have a tendency to hang on a little longer or be a little bit petrified to get rid of a quarterback. And so Dynasty Superflex is a little harder to get some of these guys, but still try. Just expect that the resistance could be stronger with these guys, especially like Herbert's a steal, easy to get in 1 QB Dynasty or 1 QB redraft, but in Superflex, he becomes a first rounder. And so that changes the ability to get him. But yeah, these guys there's all different levels of being undervalued, like Mahomes, JD5, Herbert. to being slept on to turning into kind of mid-range sleepers to turning into an absolute, totally regarded as sleeper universally as AR5, Milroe, and and Brissett. Those are undeniable sleeper candidates on anybody's level of definition.
So you know what's funny? I was just looking at it. So Nick's obviously just turned 26 today. T-Law turns 27, I think it is, in October. Do you know how old Shuck turns in September?
23? 22? 23?
27.
Whoa. I didn't know Shuck was that old.
Yeah.
Now that I remember, now that I do remember that,
like
actually.
Van Wilder. Remember that guy movie? Van Wilder.
Yeah.
Football.
Yeah. You know what? I was going to answer at older age because I did remember he was older, but
I thought he was like 24, 25.
Yeah. But you asked 27. It like it was surprising, so that's why I guessed a low number, but I should have went the higher end. But yeah, I was going to say if you wouldn't have,
they're all the same age, basically.
If you wouldn't have prefaced that, I would have said 24. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Shuck is also a guy, admittedly, I did not like coming out of the draft. I admit that. I was wrong. I like him a lot right now. Not worried about 26, 25, 27, though, because Kurt Warner got started around 26, 27, and he played how many years? So, I'm not worried about it.
It's and they all have their own questions. With Shuck, there's definitely there's more upside to be had, I think, just because, he's in this new system and this team that looks to be an upstart team building the right way. So that's exciting.
Together, if you add them together,
Shuck and T-Law.
Bo Nix and Shuck together are 53 years old. But yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, these are all good players. I'm not gonna be here much longer, so ask your two questions real quickly, and then I'm probably gonna jump because I'm tired.
Yeah, I just had a few either ors in terms of dynasty. Purdy or Goff?
That's a great question, and honestly, I mean, they could go either way. I'm going to lean Purdy. I think they do get rid of Mac. I think Purdy played pretty well, but the problem is with Kittle likely not to play till mid-season, and then even then, will he be the same? And with Trent Williams' situation and his age and injury history and the contract, everything, he really could fall apart. And if both of those things aren't there for that offensive line, Purdy's going to turn into a pumpkin, and Goff might stay stable for 3 years or something. So it's hard to say. I think I'd lean Purdy. I think Purdy's got more dynasty appeal anyway, so I'd probably end up moving either one. And it's going to be real hard to trade Goff. So I'd say Purdy based on trade value.
Yeah, Goff's been really consistent, but Purdy, when things are working right, has a little bit of a nice ceiling. This is deeper, obviously, but kind of just looking at former high picks. Bryce Young versus Stroud.
Oh man, this is the one that Ron was on Stroud his rookie year, and I was team Bryce Young, and Ron crushed me on that, and we all thought that this busted. Oh my God, what a bad call! Now Stroud's completely busted, in my opinion. I don't even want him. I don't even want to own him. I mean, would I take him if he got dropped? Sure, but I'd be trading him immediately. I'd be like, oh, I found a little tiny sliver of gold, not a pot of gold, a sliver of even gold. I found a sliver of. I found a pound of copper, and I'm gonna trade it in for one silver coin. Young doesn't have tremendous appeal to me either. So the answer is I don't like either one. From my starting quarterback, even if it's my super flex, I'm not. But Young's got way more momentum right now, in my opinion. I think Stroud is he's shaky, and you have beat reporters asking their head coach and GM questions like, is Stroud tradable? And they're like, that's a ridiculous question. But people are asking it because the public's watching this unfold, and he's been a disaster the last year and a half.
So the one thing I will say about Stroud, Young, I've always had a hard time getting a read on Young and what his ceiling is. I just don't think Young's ceiling is really high. But the one thing I will say about Stroud is I like when he's in a clean pocket throwing. And so if he got traded to a team like the Vikings, like we always bring up, I'd be back in on Stroud a little bit. I know a lot of people wouldn't, but I think he's very similar to a Mac Jones, where if you put good weapons around him and good pieces and protect him and give him time to throw, I think he can do all right. But
You might
right
be
now
right.
he's broken.
You might
He's
be right, but
broken in Houston though.
yeah, the thing I would say about that is, there's some definitely good arguments there. My concern would be that they're the worst offensive line in the league. Pass protection is
Right.
horrible.
I don't want him.
Rushing, stats are all horrible for the offensive line. And if they don't fix that, then Stroud's going to bust far before we see him rebound behind the fixes in the offensive line. So, but you're right. He could then in Dynasty, he could move on like Baker did. He could move on like Darnold did and reemerge, on a team. So like that's certainly a possibility. But I think that's why I would say I don't want to go through any of that roller coaster. Give me the guy that's
And
entrenched as a starter. He's getting better. Young's got good weapons. I saw in the chat to Husseini said we love Coker. We're a huge Coker community. We put Coker on the midseason monster board. Coker's on the monster board. Love him, and obviously Ted. So there's a lot to like about the Panthers situation, and there's not a lot at all to like except for Nico about this situation. And even though we love Woody, Woody's in a mess of a situation. Smitty, how do you feel about Bryce Young at this point? Well, we just covered that. His ADP's decent. I don't love either one. Like I said, I'm not team Bryce Young or Stroud anymore. I don't want to. If I got, here's the other thing too: is Travis, if I had to choose one now, it's Young because I'm trading one of them. And how are you going to trade Stroud?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so that would be my answer. All right, last one or two, and then I'm going to get out of here.
Just two quick ones. On Penix, do you see him as more of like, the top of those kind of revival guys, like a step ahead of them,
Yeah.
but where you're just taking a flyer, or are you like, you have him higher than Bryce Young right now? I guess that would be a question.
Not right now, but I'm wondering if that will happen. Like I would not, just because of the injury, and Stefanski is a variable that we cannot control. There's word that he wants to trade for Dylan Gabriel. So I'm just not a believer in Stefanski. So I can't then hitch my wagon to Penix Jr. either, because I'm trying to trade either one of them.
And the last one I had was just, so this was Dynasty again. So Mendoza or Cam Ward?
Ward. And I think that Mendoza, well, you know what? I don't know why I said it like that.
Because I think a lot of people, I know a lot of people still like Ward, but I think a lot of people would say Mendoza pretty quick. And I think there's an argument to be had. Like
there is.
Part of me leans Ward.
I think Ward's safe for now. I don't think that's crazy. I think most people would agree that for 2026, even if we're talking Dynasty 2026, Ward is the better value, because you know what you're getting. He's already gone through the ups and downs, and I think they've really assembled a good staff there. They're probably going to draft one of the two top rookies, so his situation is going to be a lot better looking after draft day, because Tate is probably going to Tennessee, or Jordan Tyson, or Mekhi Lemon.
I hope so.
If they don't draft a wide receiver here, then I think my answer would be Mendoza, like immediately. Yep. But this is the safer avenue for this year and Dynasty 2026, because you still have to win. You're still trying to fight every year to win. So Dynasty 2026, redraft 2026, Ward. But if I could get a little something in the deal, I'd rather have Mendoza plus something for sure. Now, would I, if let's say that person's like, hell no, Mendoza's going to be better than Ward. Either do it straight up or I'm changing my mind, and you're like on the clock. It depends on my team. If I can't win now, I would choose Mendoza and hope that he turns into something better than Ward. If I could win now, I might go with Ward. But it's a very close call, and I think Mendoza is a really, really, really interesting option.
Yeah, and I think if Tennessee builds it right, I think Ward can be better than Jackson Dart as an actual quarterback. But that's an if. Like you said, they have to take that wide receiver and they have to put the pieces around them. Or, because he isn't that, he isn't the Justin Herbert type or the Patrick Mahomes type or something.
Yep.
He's a step below that. So, all right. Appreciate
All right,
it,
man.
Smitty.
Appreciate you, bro. Later.
Bye.
Well, guys, that's it. I want to thank again 420 man for dropping that Rumble tip of the $200 bills over on in the Rumble tip jar, which is through Bitcoin. And anybody that does that again tonight over on Rumble is not only in the Wild Wild West draft, but they get a pair of Gunners. So anybody does it, even if it's like 2 a.m. or whatever, but from that show. Or, Husseini says he's going to do it tomorrow. If he stays good with that, same thing applies for Husseini. So carries over to tomorrow. So tomorrow night, anybody that does the $200 Bitcoin or Ethereum or it's over on Rumble. If you click on the $, it'll prompt you to download the Rumble wallet. Then it's just basically like throwing money into a Cash App, but you're doing it in the way that they do is Bitcoin and Ethereum and Tether Gold. But we have a Wild Wild West draft starting in March. It's going to be redraft. We do something wild with it every year. And last year we drafted in like week 5, I think. So we could all see what goes on and then just draft in week 5 for the rest of the season. It was kind of wild. And then this year we're going to draft in March for redraft. So you got to anticipate all it. So every year we're going to do something wild. I don't know if we'll mess with lineups, and we don't want to make it weird like that. We want it to be a normal league, but some sort of weird circumstance of the draft. Like maybe we end up one of these years, if I can have someone run it, because I don't think I'll be able to do it. And it sounds like a mess, but fun. I've always wanted to do this on the channel. Is we clear the rosters every week and we redraft every week. And just clear the rosters, redraft, and just keep adding up the points. Or we clear the rosters in the lowest scoring teams out, and then there's no standings at all. Just the lowest teams out, clear the rosters, redraft. Highest scoring team maybe gets like the team that gets the most highest scores of, let's say some of his first 4 times gets some sort of prize, but something like that eventually we might do. So the Wild Wild West could have something like that go on. But this year, the wild part of it will be that we'll be drafting in March in a redraft. So it'll be fun. Thank you all for being here. Please hit that thumb up button on the way out the door. I think we only have 20 thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new. See you on the main channel. And don't forget to get on over to thefantasyfootballshow.com for your year-round rankings, bowl predictions, trade calculators. Draft simulator is brand new. The lineup analyzer is brand new. The rankings have been revamped. So make sure you get on over to thefantasyfootballshow.com. This is not the revamped screenshot. I'll have that very soon. But everything's been revamped over there on thefantasyfootballshow.com. See you all later.